Good afternoon, everybody. I'm about to give the commentary for lecture 15 of the Foundations of Esotericism. We're coming quite close now to the middle of this book. I've called this chapter or this lecture in my book Wisdom, Beauty and Strength. Here Steiner shows again his wrestling and the changing of Western esotericism that had been revivified through the Rosicrucians of the Middle Ages, that had in a way been lost through the materialistic thinking of about the 15th century onwards, that they needed a new esoteric impulse, and how it was needed to bring in the Eastern esotericism but find a Western framework for it. And that in many ways, as he says, the ways that we can transform the world is to make sure that we behave in accordance with wisdom, beauty and strength, or science, art and inner strength. So he says that according to these ways, if we relate to the world, if we're working with the intellect and wisdom, then we are transforming the etheric body, through beauty, to which piety belonged, the astral body, and through strength, the individual ego. So the transformation of the etheric body, the astral body and the individual I came through wisdom, through beauty and through inner strength, or whatever is developed through the will, inner strength being the development of the will. And interestingly enough, he calls these three kingdoms the science, art and inner strength. He reiterates as well that these organs, these inner organs for the higher bodies, are developed when we pursue the study of science and when we develop intimate spiritual friendships. So these become spiritual organs. So we had spoken before about how when we develop friendships that are not based upon karma or upon our blood relationships, but a deep commitment out of our spiritual relationship, we start to develop higher organs of perception. But now he also adds when we study science. So this is a very interesting comment, because here he is obviously still working with the particular understanding that he's giving his lectures to a theosophical audience, but he's also developing his own spiritual science. Now, the word spiritual science and the word anthroposophy are not Steinerisms. They are words that had been in use by the German idealists, and also had been in his own education, had been used by some of his teachers. So he was sort of developing a way of presenting his own insights within the theosophical world, developing his own Western esoteric language to develop these things. And later on in his life, when he gives a lecture cycle in Wales, he talks about his schism, or his breaking away, or his growing away from the theosophical Western tradition, in that he said that what he had discovered, or what he had to do, was when he reached a certain point in his esoteric development, he had to take it a step further. And this is where it becomes quite interesting. In order to go a step further, he didn't further his esoteric practices. He said, in order for me to go further in my esoteric and my spiritual perceptions, I had to deepen my understanding of the natural sciences. So he said, and this was part of his breaking away from the theosophists, was that they just didn't want to take on a deepening of their esoteric work through understanding more and more fully the science of their time, or the natural science of their time. And he at this point is already flagging that for us to develop the higher group of, or a higher sensorium of spiritual senses, we can use our spiritual relationships. And here he adds how we study science also includes our development of the higher senses. So that's quite an interesting factor here, that we need to remain up to date with the natural sciences of our times. It's all too often that spiritualities or even anthroposophy can be accused of being a bit woolly, but no, we really have to understand the scientific developments of our times. In our times, that has become quite a prolific body of work. If we take in the sort of the development of evolution theory, genetic theory, noetic sciences, quantum physics, all the various realms where science is developing, we need to have a working knowledge and a general interest in these sciences in order to take our spiritual development a step further in the development of our spiritual organs of perception. So when we look at how we engage in the world, he says that, you know, if we are engaging with the world in the way that these lectures he wanted us to take up in the foundations of esoteric training, that we are transforming both the inner aspects of the human beings, but by taking in the world around us, we're also transforming the world around us. So through these three categories of wisdom, of beauty, and of inner strength, we transform our etheric bodies, our astral bodies, and our ego, but we also act upon the world around us. So we can start to recognize that the fruits of our activities in the world around us also transforms the world of the plants and the animals and the stones around us as well. So very important to ponder, what does it mean to have wisdom in our thinking life, beauty in our feeling life, and to have this inner strength of the will to bring about what we have undertaken in the world. So for example, it brings the example, if a particular person was to be an architect and built a cathedral, they would know that in the future that their karma would draw them back to that building, and that they would have to then find the wisdom that they had imbued in that building in future lifetimes. So quite an interesting aspect, that what we do through our inner strength in the world also has deep effects in future lives, that we will be drawn back to where we have done things in the world before. It's another sort of picture that we can ponder, that if you sort of try to work out where are you drawn to go to in the world, what is drawing you there? Is it just interest, or have you been there before in previous times and you've done meditative work, possibly artistic work, creative work, work of transforming the physical world around us, and that's what draws you back. So Steiner says that when we do things in the world, especially those are not only especially, but even things that require us to create a karmic balance, will remain inscribed there until the person who's done them goes back to that place and creates a balancing act. So an interesting kind of way to look at our wishes to travel around the world, or where our life has taken us. You may no longer be where you were born. Why did you move to another country? Why have you moved city? Why have you gone to other places? It's because we are drawn there to bring some balancing inner strength work out of the will towards what we have done there, possibly earlier in this lifetime or in earlier lifetimes. So wisdom, beauty, and strength as a way of personal transformation, working with spiritual community, friendships of intimate spiritual natures, plus our deepening of science and our understanding of science as ways of developing higher organs of spiritual perception, but also realizing that we work into the world of the animal, the plant, and the mineral in such a way that we begin to transform it, but we are also drawn back in future lifetimes to come to that work to transform it even further, or to learn from it in future lifetimes. Why are we drawn to particular temples or buildings or places as part of our karma? And then towards the end of the lecture, he talks about something that I'm not going to go into too much detail about, but in our post-life experience in the Eastern philosophy, there are these 12 forces that draw us back towards our next incarnation, and they are deeply connected with the three aspects of soul. So 3 sets of 4 energies that draw us back towards our next incarnation. The first one towards what Steiner calls our consciousness soul, the second one to our mind soul or our intellectual soul, and the third group connected with the sentient soul. So there are aspects of consciousness that draw us back to the earth. They are aspects of concepts of wanting to create concepts out of our experiences in the physical world that draw us back to the physical world, but there are also concepts of bodily comfort and desire that draw us back down into the sentient soul. So they are what in the Eastern tradition are known as the 12 Nidanas, these energies. He says they work like strings, drawing us ever again up and down between existences. So something that we start to see again, our work through wisdom, beauty and inner strength create scripts, so to say, in the matrix of substance here on the earth, which then accompany us between incarnations, but which then also draw us back towards further work of transformation in the realm of the created world, of the manifest world of the material substances. So we spoke earlier a little bit how we need to differentiate between different forms of substances, and that the physical material substances, but the coarsest level of substantiality. And through wisdom, beauty, and this inner strength of creating in the world outside of us, we create ways for us to continue participating in the evolution of consciousness and to the evolution of our planet and species. So there's some ideas that come with that lecture. Bit of a difficult one to find something, but we now reach, as I said, the middle point of this lecture cycle, and some of the lectures get quite dense in their content. But there's some ideas maybe we can take with us and ponder. How do we approach the world? Wisdom in our thinking, beauty in our aesthetic feeling, and then the inner strength in what we do in our creativity, in our relationships. So wisdom through science, possibly, where we're not just looking at science but also spiritual science, in towards creating wisdom in how we look at the world, but also then how we want to see the beauty in the world but also create beauty in the world, and then this inner strength to do something that then creates these 12 nidanas of consciousness, of creating concepts, but also of the bodily desire to be in the bodily world as part of the energies that guide us from existence to existence. Okay, wishing you a good afternoon, and see you in a couple of days for the middle lecture of this lecture cycle number 16. Day 31 lectures, so we've still got a bit of a way to go. Cheers.